Hello everyone, my name is Alan Clelland. I'm a board member of the Board of Management of the City of Pasadena's Community Access Corporation. That's the parent organization of Pasadena Media. I'm pleased to be the host of this. This is the second of Pasadena Media's monthly On the Move podcast, and we explore mobility issues in the City of Pasadena. Our goal is to provide information to the community on current issues of interest, present new ideas, and occasionally take a look at Pasadena's history and see how we got here. Today's podcast will look at the provision of facilities and capabilities for charging electric vehicles within the City of Pasadena. I'm pleased to welcome my guest today, Evan Johnson. Evan is the Electrification Program Manager in the City of Pasadena's Department of Water and Power. Together, we're going to explore the city's approach to supporting electric vehicle charging through the city's policies and actions. Evan, welcome to our On the Move podcast. It's a pleasure to have you here. Could you please we'll start by you summarizing the city's current policy regarding the importance of providing EV charging capabilities, and tell us about your role at the city as Electrification Program Manager in implementing this policy.
Well, hi, Alan. Thanks for having me. Really appreciate the invite to be here today. So the city's policies about electrification programs, basically the EV programs and e-mobility. We also do e-bikes as well. The city started with the Climate Action Plan back in 2018 that really had a very progressive and proactive approach to trying to reduce GHG emissions here in Pasadena. And one of the ways that we go about doing that is trying to help encourage the transition to electrification through EVs. The state of California has discovered that most of the GHG emissions, about 40%, are due to transportation. And so one way to tackle that low-hanging fruit is to really kind of get more cleaner vehicles on the road. That includes the city's fleet vehicles as well as the public vehicles that are on Pasadena streets every day. So a way to encourage that is to encourage EV charging, both commercial charging, which is basically for fleets, workplaces, the city itself as well, but also public charging. So one thing that's been happening in the state is that people have felt that there hasn't been enough public charging, and why go to an electric vehicle if you can't find a place to charge it? It's been a very contentious kind of a discussion about, how to do that properly. And Pasadena has felt that we found a very good solution to that by adding our own public charging as a service through Water and Power Department. The way that we go about doing that is by adding EV charging stations available to the public. We look at a few different types of charging. We look at what we call destination charging when you're going to a location and you want to charge while you're there. We look at corridor charging, which is basically people that are driving through that want to charge pretty fast and get back on the road. And then there's a mixture of that, right? So a little bit of locations where we want to have some fast chargers and some chargers that take a little bit longer so that you can kind of find the right fit for your charging needs here in Pasadena. We also really encourage workplace charging through commercial rebates, where we want you to charge while you're parked at work all day long. So if you're there for 7, 8, 9, 10 hours a day, and you have an EV, you can definitely be charging while you're at work and the car's not moving. So those are great options.
That makes a lot of sense, yeah.
And we still recognize that a lot of the charging that's being done right now is at your home. So we also encourage residential charging rebates, rebates for EVs, for used EVs right now. And we want to figure out how to make sure that when you're at night and the car's also parked for long periods of time, that you have options to charge. We feel that those things would then encourage folks to switch over to EVs, recognize that EVs are great vehicles. They have some of the newest technology. They're clean to drive. They're actually pretty fun to drive. And they're a great way to help us reduce GHG here in Pasadena through the switch from gas vehicles to electric.
Excellent. Well, that covers quite a range of activities there in itself. Can you give us some idea of the issues that you have to deal with that impact the public with respect to electric vehicle charging?
Sure. This is a pretty new field, right? So it's something that the utility hasn't done before. We're in the first 4 or 5 years of actually implementing public charging as a service, where we're providing the actual service to the public to charge. So in some locations, we've encouraged it a lot by not charging for the service, where some chargers are free. So we have some parking garages where you can charge for free while you're shopping in Old Pasadena or you're around the Civic Center area. We also have locations that are fast charging locations by the 110 freeway, by our Glenarm. We call it the Arroyo EV Depot. We have another location called Shoppers Lane behind Lake Avenue on the South Lake District, correct? And then we have Moringa Rooftop Garage around the Civic Center area where we have 44 chargers on the roof where you can charge while you're shopping at the Paseo. So
that's the Paseo one.
That's the Paseo lot, yeah. So we have quite a few different options for how to charge and how to encourage charging.
Excellent. So you mentioned that the charges are provided by both the city and private companies. How do you see the city's role compared to private sector provision of charging?
Sure. So a lot of times the private companies, if you look at Electrify America, EVgo's, you even have Tesla, even here in Pasadena. Those are private companies that offer charging as a service. A lot of times they're sometimes it can be very efficient, sometimes it can be very fast charging, but they can also be costly sometimes. Those costs sometimes are above 45 cents a kilowatt hour. And we recognize here in Pasadena there's an equity component that if you can charge at home for your residential rate, sometimes the rates can be 3 times as much to charge on a public site. And we feel that we need to offer something that's more equitable for certain groups of people and also to be able to encourage the service, encourage the transition. So right now we have a pretty low rate of 15 cents a kilowatt hour during our regular hours, and we have a peak of 20 cents a kilowatt. So we're very comparable to our residential rates right now for the public service. We are in the middle of a cost of service study to kind of see, what's the right price, for the commodity. But we definitely are in a position where we want to encourage the transition. So we're trying to figure out, something that's a little bit more economical than some other private companies.
Do you feel, or do you get the impression that the public is sensitive to those rates that you've mentioned there?
I think it's really new because we don't understand the true operating costs yet, right?
It's not like when you go to a gas station and all the prices are there. You can compare 2 gas stations next to each other. Yeah?
There's some really good apps. PlugShare is one that we use. There's also some Google apps that can kind of tell you the different pricing points at different locations, whether it's public or private, and kind of the speeds of, how fast can you charge? Because that's one thing that we're dealing with now is the information of how to charge, right? Every vehicle is a little bit different. Some that have different range. Some can charge faster than others. Some are hybrids that can't go as far on gas or electric. So it just depends on getting that information out there, trying to explain what's the best fit for needs, and then how to accommodate that for lots of people.
Excellent. You mentioned that it's not only public versus private or public and private, but the ability to charge at home is important. And I had electric vehicle for several years, and I know how important it is to be able to plug in at home. But not everybody's in a single family home. And you mentioned rebates and provisions for encouraging use. Do they apply to multi-family residential developments as well?
We have commercial rebates that apply to multifamily. So we have a pretty substantial commercial rebate program. It's up to $75,000 per commercial meter, where, a business, we typically call it a house meter. If you have a house meter, it's a commercial meter. And then you can get $3,000 per electric vehicle charging port at that facility that we help to encourage the addition of adding installations at multifamily housing. It applies to businesses. It also applies to multifamily as well.
Excellent. And presumably you keep track of where these various facilities are, because it's important to be geographically sensitive as well. It's part of your equity issue as well.
That's correct. We actually use housing maps we get from our housing department. So they look at different locations of low-income housing facilities, low-income customers that are on that housing map. So we get a pretty good range of our geographic location. We want to encourage charging locations across the entire city. Typically, we've been a little bit more concentrated in the business districts because that's kind of where people kind of generate and come to in higher numbers during the day, and that's where we're encouraging the workplace charging. But we are, aware of trying to find more charging spaces along the east side of Pasadena as well as the northwest district. So we actually have 2 new projects that are going to be done in about a month, 6 weeks or so. Mm-hmm. That's our Victory Park charging location, and then we have one at Robinson Park. Each of those locations are going to have 25 chargers there. So we're going to have a mix of a couple level 3 chargers for people that want to get in and get out within an hour or so. You can get around, walk the park, get your charge and go. But if you're there for a softball tournament or a little bit longer for some basketball or other items, those can be like a 3 or 4 hour charge. So we're trying to offer a variety of charging at different locations that are part of city property already.
Well, I park at Victory Park myself to walk the dog 2 or 3 times a week, and it's busy at times with all the sports events that happen within Victory Park. Do you have to be careful to strike a balance when you're actually taking some parking spaces away from the general public in terms of using any car to park and dedicating it to EV charging?
There's always a balance, but on this location, we work with the actual parks department. So
very good.
We don't try to take over a location or try to dictate, what should or shouldn't be the rules at that location. So the parking requirements, how long people can park, those things are going to be dictated by the parks department and their needs. There are some times where they have very busy events. I know they have the Rose Bowl stuff at the very end, so I think they're going to, dictate who can and can't use it at that time. But for the most part, we just allow the facility that allows us to use their property to kind of dictate the rules. So if we go into a parking garage, the parking garage will kind of tell us what kind of rules they would like to have. If we go into a library or to a park, we really want the park to be telling us what their needs are.
And I must say, having watched what's happening at Victory Park with the installation of the equipment going on, you've been very careful to maximize the availability of the parking spaces and not impact them.
That's correct. Yeah, we try to, there are building codes and requirements we have to follow. So we have to get permits through the planning department, and they're all signed off permits. But yeah, we want to create an amenity that adds to the location, that adds to the beauty of the location. Pasadena is just really known for its parks, its beautiful trees, its its area. So we want to make sure the aesthetics of it stays the same, and that we're cognizant of adding without detracting from a particular location.
I've heard a common complaint elsewhere that you can turn up at a charging station. You have to queue sometimes to wait, but quite often there are problems with the equipment and it's not charging. What kind of provisions are you making to take that into account at the moment and making sure that you maximize the availability of the city's equipment?
We are in a process of trying to figure out the O&M piece, right? It's still pretty new, and we're learning as we go. At the Arroyo EV Depot, we added in lots of trash cans. We added in bags for people to walk their dogs, to keep the area clean. At that location, we added extra lighting. We have security cameras. We provide landscaping, gardening twice a week at that location, including trash pickup. So we want everything to feel safe. We want it to be well lit. We want it to be controlled where we add cameras at our newer locations. We are learning that people do things differently around EV charging. They may clean out their car and throw all their trash away, or they may get out and walk their dog. And we have to kind of be aware of what people are doing at each location and figuring out how to accommodate, how to make it a great experience at each location. There is some queuing. We want to make sure that the queuing doesn't impact traffic locations. We always do a DOT study before we put in new charging to see what kind of issues may come up. But after a site goes in, we definitely monitor it. We want to make sure that it's staying picked up and clean. For Victory Park and Robinson Park, it's being maintained by the Parks Department. So the trash in the area, the location, the lighting, we are installing cameras at that location. So we're trying our best to make sure that we are adding a great amenity that adds the value that we really want to see, as well as encouraging a great place to charge so that you actually enjoy the experience.
Well, the Parks Department makes a very good job of maintaining level of cleanliness there at Victory Park. I've noticed that. Just reading up on various articles preparing for this, there seems to be a rash of problems with vandalism at charging stations elsewhere in other parts of the country, where the cables have been cut to get access to the copper and stealing the cables. Is that something that's been happening in Pasadena?
We haven't seen that be a major issue in Pasadena. I think one of the reasons probably is because we're actually very busy at locations.
Yes.
So the Arroyo site, the Marengo site, Shoppers Lane site, we see usage 24/7. So cars are there constantly. So we also have added lighting and security cameras in areas to make it well lit, clean, keeping it safe and well monitored. We also always talk to our police department when we have a new site coming in so that they know that there's 24-hour usage. So cars may be parked here so that they can add it to their regular routes overnight. We want everyone to feel safe and comfortable at a location. Very early on, I had a talk with someone that said, hey, if I'm in my vehicle and I feel unsafe, I can't get out and unplug, right? So we wanted to make that, a priority to make sure that we make a very safe environment, that everyone feels that the location they're at feels comfortable to be in, no matter what time you're at there.
Excellent. Yeah, when you got these facilities, you mentioned Old Town, but they're in the Playhouse District as well. You got facilities there. And
Sure, Playhouse is something that we're expanding on. We have one in the Madison lot. It's just south of the Earth Cafe. It's on Madison itself. There's a couple there. We also have a few at the new Playhouse Village Park. That's going to be one of our expansion projects coming up this year. So we're going to add another 20 there, which will be great. But Playhouse doesn't have as many as the old Pasadena area, but we are looking to add more. I know that that's an area that we would like to expand at in our city-owned location. So
excellent. How does the city's fleet fit into all of this, and Pasadena Transit as well? Because I'm aware as the bigger the vehicles become, there are different requirements for charging. So if you're dealing with a bus fleet, that's quite different from a smaller, just small truck fleet, for example. Yeah.
Fleet's an interesting time right now for electric vehicles. I think for light duty vehicles, small trucks and cars and things like that, I think that the city has done a pretty job of transitioning over there. I think we have over 85 or 90 electric vehicles for the city already. I know that the DOT for Pasadena has 2 electric buses coming. We're in the process of actually finalizing a construction project at the city yards to accommodate charging for those 2 buses. DOT also has a bus plan, electrification bus plan that they're working on. So I'm not as familiar with the exact specs of when they're going to transition and how, but I know that they have a plan in place to do that. The way that we work with the different departments is that we want to try to get ahead of how many vehicles they need to go electric and how to charge them when they get there. So the city is really good about trying to collaborating with each department. We have a quarterly director head meeting about the needs of each department. We call it our electrification working group meeting. We do it quarterly. It's a great process to kind of talk about the issues that we're having. There's a new ACF rule that just came out called Advanced Clean Fleets. It's a new state mandated program that requires half of all medium and heavy duty vehicles, including governments, to go electric now. So we have to prepare that when we're starting to buy these new medium heavy duty vehicles that we have a place to charge them, how to charge them, making sure the available power is there. So the City Department of Public Works has a great plan in place to do that. We work very closely with them. We have a bi-weekly meeting with them that we're talking about what new vehicles are being purchased, where they're going to be located, how they're charging. We kind of look at their usage of the replacement vehicle. How many miles do they drive per week, per day?
So this is very close cooperation between the different departments within the city.
That's correct. Topic. It takes a lot of planning to try to make sure that we have the equipment in place. Some of these projects take 2 to 3 years to build. The amount of power it takes to order transformers and switchgear and the planning and permitting takes some time. So really getting ahead of the projects is really important, and having a good understanding of that transition period of when the vehicles need to be purchased and when. So that's it can be tricky.
Well, it's tricky in the planning, but there's all sorts of activities going on at the same time on the private side, and trying to keep on top of all that, keep it all balanced, must be quite the task.
Well, I think it's a fun task, right? It's kind of a gas vehicles have been around for more than 100 years. Mm-hmm. We've been doing things the same way for a century now. So trying to figure out a new way to do it, a new way that makes sense and works for people. Also the economics of it, right? Some of these vehicles are very, very expensive. On the medium heavy duty side can be 2 or 3 times as much as the replacement, vehicle was. So just trying to figure out how to manage it, how to pay for it, and how to make sure that it works for what you want to do. The operations has to continue for a city, whether it's trash pickup or things like that. These things just have to work, right? If the power goes out and we have an electric step van, we have to get your power turned back on quickly using the equipment that we have. So we want to make sure that it works.
Yeah. And it's not always under your control. For example, on the passenger vehicle side, we're seeing several firms now promising cheaper electric vehicles. And the electric vehicles have been pretty expensive compared to their equivalent in a gas vehicle. But there's a promise now for cheaper ones, which means there's should be many more on the road. And of course, that puts a bigger demand on the charging infrastructure. So keeping track of that's important as well, correct?
Keeping track of that's really important. I think that that's a very good point. We haven't seen the secondary market of EVs kind of come online yet. People are still buying brand new electric vehicles.
Yeah,
so we haven't seen this big jump of the secondary market yet. In the same token, I would say that's correct. We still don't have like tried and true vehicles that have been tested, especially for the medium duty and heavy duty side. There's very cool vehicles. I just finished up last week at a conference called ACT, Advanced Clean Transportation. It was in Vegas. It's one of the largest in the country. And I got to see and actually drive. It's a ride and drive event. So you get to actually drive some of these medium heavy duty options coming out. So very exciting stuff. But, again, it's, we have to really plan and, understand like the needs of each vehicle. How much, how big are the batteries? What kind of range do they have?
Yeah. Yes.
How can it help us get to our goals?
There's quite a variation there.
There is a variation, yeah.
And we've been talking about rebates and subsidies. There's changes going on at the federal level that will affect the vehicle subsidies because the vehicle has to be produced in the US to be able to have the federal subsidy. Do you see any other subsidies coming in? For example, you mentioned the secondary market, so that's the buying used vehicles. What's going on in that arena that would affect that?
Well, there's lots of really amazing options out of the federal government. They have the new IRA funding and IIJA funding. There's lots of grants coming out, but they can also be complex, and we have to kind of understand how we can utilize those to meet our needs the best. We have lots of resources here in the city that we try to utilize. There's an organization called SCAPA that we use, that Water and Power is a part of, that we basically collaborate with other public-owned utilities to kind of, get together and talk once a month about, what options are out there, what grants are out there, how we can apply. We've applied for grants together as a group, to kind of make more regional grant funding available to us. So it's just being on top of what's available, what's out there, how can we could take advantage, whether it's direct pay changes and IRA funding or things that we can utilize to kind of help us get to those goals quicker. But there are lots of new things coming out that we can take advantage of, especially for grants.
And SCAPA, that's Southern California?
Public Power Authority.
Public Power Authority. Oh, I see, yeah. Public Power Authority. Yeah, so lots of things moving parts.
Lots of moving parts, but there's lots of excitement and there's lots of opportunities in this field, which is good.
So if I'm out looking to purchase an electric vehicle, you're obviously sensitive to the community reaction to all of this and the community impressions and feelings. Do you have ways in which you can directly target people who are considering buying electric vehicles to make them aware of some of the issues that we've been talking about here?
Sure. We have a marketing team here at Water and Power that I think does a very good job of trying to, get the word out. We try lots of different ways to provide information. We've recently even purchased new coloring books to give kids information on how to go electric, right? So how does an electric, vehicle battery work? These are really interesting things to get the kind of interest going for the community. We also just bought new tips books for our local dealerships to basically hand out information to people interested in vehicles at the dealership level. We have this company called Velos. It's Electric for All. We have a membership with this company that basically you can go online, you can type in your zip code, and it can give you all of the rebates available for you in your area for EVs, whether it's federal rebates, local utility rebates. And you can even pick different vehicles, and it can kind of tell you how much you can get for each vehicle. So it makes it really easy to kind of find, the best way to get them, the most kind of incentives that you can apply back on the vehicle.
Is this information accessible through the city's website?
We have it available through links on our Water and Power page.
What's the Water and Power page? Okay. And of course, that's accessible through the citypasadena.net.
Correct.
Yeah. Yeah. Children's coloring books, get them young.
Well, we've realized we've had quite a few, I think, marketing tools at the grade school level. I think on lots of energy efficiency programs, how to conserve water, how new light bulbs and LEDs work. And we felt this was a great way to also add it in just on the knowledge base of people in Pasadena to kind of understand, what things are important and how things are going.
Excellent. So that's a good place to go to, obviously, the City of Pasadena's site. Any other places that you would like the public to be aware of to get information?
We have quite a few links on our page. If you go to our Water and Power page, you can find our home electric vehicle page, and from there we have lots of links that can get you to the right information.
How would, as a member of the public, if I see a problem with a charging station or something, is there an easy way just to report that back to you?
There's two ways you can do it. On every station that we have stickers that will highlight, the vendor who is doing our back office. This is the person who's managing the payment system, so you can use their direct number to call them for, mostly technical assistance, how to complete a charge, how to, log in, how to pay, if that's a question. We also have our CSC number on each charger as well. So if you have like a general complaint, if you have an issue, if you'd like some more information, you can definitely use the CSC number to talk to direct city staff that can, create a system for us to kind of, get back to you, and we can reach customers that way as well.
Excellent. Well, that's got to be valuable for the public to be able to do that.
I hope so. I think one of the things that we really want to highlight now is that we really want to get that feedback. If chargers aren't working properly, if things don't kind of seem quite right, we want to know so that we can address it.
Excellent. Very, very good. We've covered quite a bit of ground there, Evan. Thank you very much. Is there anything that we missed that you'd like to bring attention to?
I just think that we have a great program here. I think that Pasadena's been pretty proactive about really encouraging the transition to electrification, through these programs that we're doing. We collaborate with departments. We collaborate with not just us, but also other local regional utilities, as well as other government entities, which is great. So, but we're still learning. So the more feedback we can get from the community, from the public, I think it makes us have a better program. So looking forward to hearing from people that listen today.
Hopefully this will help.
And
yes,
they can get in touch with us, and trying to look forward to seeing what we can do to make it better.
Well, I'd like to thank you for being with me today, Evan. This has been very informative, and I hope useful to the public as well. And I'd just like to thank the audience for listening in to us, and I encourage you to follow more programs in the future. Thanks very much. Thank you, Alan.
Thank you, Alan.